Okay. Yes, so I want to emphasize lights. Lights. Notice that it's in plural form. As a matter of fact, while we're at it, I don't know if I've ever looked up how you say lights in Abari. Is that going to be too much right now? I know that singular is R, spelled AUR. Um, uh, might be too much right now. I'll look at it another time. Let lights come to be in the expanse of Shamayim to separate the day from the night, and let them be for signs and appointed times, and for days, and for years. Now we know that when you look at the way things work, is that days, okay, let's think about it from this perspective. Pennies make 10 pennies make 1 dime, right, family? 10 pennies make 1 dime, right? 5 dimes make a half a dollar, right? Or 50 pennies make a half a dollar. And so 5 dimes make a half a dollar. 10 pennies make 1 dime. 5 dimes make a half a dollar. 10 dimes make $1, right? But where did that math start? Where did that mathematics start? What did it start with? Did it start with dimes or did it start with pennies? And if we break down the dollar, we have 100 pennies, right? So it doesn't matter um, how you look at it. It takes 100 pennies to make $1. Mahar, tuda akut, tuda, right? It takes 100 pennies to make $1. Is that right? No matter how you split it, takes 100 pennies to make $1. So if we break down a dollar to its um, least common denominator, uh, that least common denominator would be 1 penny, right? 1 penny. If you break down a dollar to its least common denominator, that least common denominator would be 1 penny. Now, I know somebody is saying, well, what does that have to do with anything? And we're not doing a math class, or we're not studying Wall Street. What does that have to do with anything? Well, I use that to make a point here. And the point is this. The scripture says, let's go back to Bereshit chapter 1. It says here in verse, give me just a second. Where is it at? The day over the night. Where am I at here? Seasons. Where are we at? Signs. Okay, verse 14. It says here in verse 14, and Elohim said, let lights come to be in the expanse of the heavens, to separate the day from the night, and to let them be for signs and appointed times, and for days and for years. Now, the reason why I use the pennies analogy is because days leads to, if we're doing timekeeping, days leads to what, family? Days leads to, we're keeping time. Days would lead to, well, it started off with weeks, right? Days leads to weeks. Weeks leads to moons or months. Months leads to year, right? Or years. So days ultimately is going to lead you to Shabuah. Shabuah leads you to moon. In that sense, Yara'ak, speaking of an entire season, um, and Yara'ak leads us to a year is what is the word for year again? Is it Shabana? I forget what the word for year is. But you have days leads to weeks, weeks leads to moons, moons leads to year, right? Okay, so we keep that in mind. So when Yahuwah says here that these lights are to be for signs and for us to be able to determine appointed times and determine days and years, that would also include the cycle of the moon, right? Because days leads to moons eventually, moons leads to year. Okay, so all of this is included, and it is important for us to keep this in mind. The point that I'm getting at here, family, is the fact that we cannot calculate a year without taking into consideration the two great lights in the heavens. And we cannot consider or get an understanding of the signs in the year without considering the lesser lights in the heavens, which are the stars. Okay, so in Christianity, their calendar is based only on the sun. Some in Judaism base their calendar only on the moon. But the only way that you can have a proper calendar is one that considers the two great lights. So you can't have a calendar that's only based upon the movement of one or the other. Your calendar must be based upon the movement of both as they relate to the earth. So you really, Yahuwah's timepiece involves, like a clock, it has three hands. Like a clock, Yahuwah's timepiece has three hands. Okay? Can anybody guess here, or just state it? If you don't, if you know it, just put it. What are the three hands then in Yahuwah's timepiece? You have three hands, and then you have a bunch of little markers, just like you have in your clock, right? The sun, the moon, and the earth. Absolutely. And the little dots, the little markers, are the stars. Those are the signs. That's Yahuwah's timepiece. It has three hands, and it has the little markers, the stars. Okay? So the sun, the moon, and the earth. Every calendar, if it does not take these into consideration, it will be wrong. Okay? So the Christian calendar is wrong. Some Jewish calendars are wrong. And some other calendars, don't know what I would call them, are also wrong because they do not take these into consideration. And the scriptures lets us know, based on Bereshit chapter 1 that we just saw, that all of this has to be taken into consideration in order for us to number our days. Would you say, is that clear to this point, family? Any anything uh, 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 okay, clear to everyone? Want to make sure before we continue, because this is a very tedious subject and it does take a lot of focus. So I want to make sure I'm not leaving anybody behind. Okay, I'm going to take the U.S. Army's what they call it, their mantra, "No man left behind" or something like that. Right? I want to leave no man behind. Um, so okay, so we're good moving forward. All right. So what we've covered so far, we're clear on that. All right. Let's go forward. Let's move on a little, go a little further. All right. Let's go to. This is where I'm going to go to this article that I wrote a few months back on the subject. I'm gonna show you an overview of it real quick, and then I'm gonna begin to read through it. Okay. Might look longer than it actually is. It's not as long as it will look. Let me just go through it here so you see. Don't worry about trying to read it as I scroll. I'm gonna come back. I just want you to see what we're going to be covering here. So we have some figures. Thanks to my son, I got him to draw this up for me. It might all look Greek to you right now just by looking at it, but by the time we get through it, you'll understand what you're seeing. Okay. And let's go down some more here. And so that's another image that's attached to the article. And again, it all looks Greek right now, but by the time we get through it, hopefully you'll understand what you're seeing. Okay. All right. So those are the phases of the moon. And that's another another image that we'll look at as we go through this. Okay, that's another image that we'll again look at as we go through this. Now, and that's another image, figure 7, that we'll look at as we go through this. And these are scientific references attached to the article that you can go to verify what's written and to show how the scientific evidence actually supports the scriptures. Okay, or Yahuwah uses the things that he put in the earth, because that's all science is, the study of what Yahuwah created. The things that he put in the heavens and in the earth verifies what he does. Okay, so that's an overview. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to begin reading here up top. Looks longer than it actually is. Those pictures take up a lot of space. Okay, so now we're going to go back. Let me just ask this before we go any further, before we move on, family. Any questions before I go any further? Any questions? All right. All right. So, okay. All right. Praise Yah. All right. Let's go to that article. I keep going to the wrong thing. All right. So the article is entitled, Teach Us to Number Our Days Correctly. And, okay, that's the title of the article. The title of this article is borrowed from Tehillim, Psalms 90 and verse 12, which reads in full, So teach us to number our days that we may apply our hearts unto wisdom. Now, contextually, this verse is speaking of a petition to Yahuwah for wisdom so that one may have a lengthened life. Nonetheless, we will see that this petition is also necessary in regards to our being able to identify his seasons according to his calendar. There is much confusion concerning the times or seasons Yahuwah has given. We know that this is as a result of several things. First, when Yasharal turned its back on its heritage, we turned our faces to pagan customs and, hence, have forgotten Yahuwah's instructions. We see examples of this in the text of Jubilees, chapters 5 through 7. For example, during our captivity in Babylon, we picked up the pagan practices of the heathen. The practice of crescent moon worship springs from this captivity, along with another pagan practice which continues to this very day, the lunar Shabbat doctrine. There is also the fixed day doctrine. I will not at this time venture into explaining these, but instead I will address the subject at hand. Besides the aforementioned is the fact that we are told in the scriptures that an emperor will arise out of the earth who will be different from all those who preceded him and he will seek to change times and Torah, instructions, laws. Daniel, the book of Daniel, chapter 7, verse 23. This emperor, of course, represents no other than the Roman emperor, which certainly has sought to do so, seemingly very successfully. Seemingly very successfully. However, such could only be considered success had they the ability to do away with the truth. But truth still stands, which proves their attempt has failed, although they have managed to deceive many. Judaism, which is simply Christianity in another skirt, has also managed to heap confusion upon the people of Yasharal. So today we find Yahuwah's people following a Jewish calendar, believing it is a calendar based on truth. We will now ask the scriptures for the answers as to how we are to number our days correctly, and in so doing accurately identify Yahuwah's fixed or appointed times and feasts. As we go to the scriptures, I will use a simple diagram of our solar system drawn by my son Michael, to assist in communicating what Yahuwah states in Bereshit, Genesis 1:14 through 19. And Elohim said, "Let lights come to be in the expanse of the heavens to separate the day from the night, and let them be for signs and appointed times and for days and years." In verse 14 cited above, we see that Yahuwah created the lights of Shamayim for the purpose of 1. Separating day from night. In other words, these lights are responsible for bringing about day and night, or dark periods and light periods. 2. They are to be for signs or marks. 3. They mark the feast and Muadim, appointed or fixed times. 4. They are responsible for the establishment of days and years. Let us now look at the other verses. And let them be for lights in the expanse of the heavens, to give light on the earth. And it came to be so. And Elohim made 2 great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night, and the stars. We read in verse 16 above that Yahuwah made 2 great lights and the stars, the greater light, the sun, to rule the day, and the lesser light, the moon, to rule the night. These verses so far cause us to know, the word to there, causes us to know that for there to be days, years, and seasons or appointed times, the movement of these signs that was placed in the heavens must be considered. Okay, I'm going to read that again. These verses so far cause us to know that for there to be days, years, and seasons, or appointed times, the movement of these signs that was placed in the heavens must be considered. The movement of these signs that was placed in the heavens must be considered. In other words, a day, a year, or a feast or muad cannot be calculated without the workings of and our recognition of the influence these signs have upon these events, as we can see in verse 17 through 19 cited below. And Elohim set them in the expanse of the heavens to give light on the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to separate the light from the darkness. And Elohim saw that it was good. And there came to be evening, and there came to be morning, the 4th day. Okay, so we see that as a result of the movements of these, the workings of these, that there came to be, he put these lights in the heavens, all right, to rule over day and night. Okay, now having examined these facts, let us now look at these signs in action to gain a clear understanding of how they work. All right, figure 1. In figure 1, what we have is we have a snapshot of our solar system. Okay, we have a snapshot of our solar system in figure 1. And so here we have the Earth. Okay, I hope you can follow my mouse here, family. Kind of hard to see, but you have the Earth. And then if you look right above the Earth, little circle there, you see it says the moon. Okay, want to make sure everybody can see what I'm pointing to. And you all see what I'm pointing? Okay, great. Praise Yah. All right. So, all right. Praise Yah. Let's go back to that. Yeah, so you have the Earth. And then right orbiting the Earth, you have the moon. Ah, man, this thing keep jumping. I'm sorry. All right, so you have the Earth, and then orbiting the Earth, you have the moon. This line going around the Earth represents the moon in orbit, or the orbit of the moon. Down here you see the word axis, telling us that the Earth sits on its axis and it spins on its axis. In a later picture, you will see where this is drawn to suggest that the Earth is spinning. You'll see that later on in another picture. Okay, and then over here, now you have the equilateral plane or the equilateral line running across our galaxy. Okay, and so that's the equilateral line. And over here you have the fall equinox, and over here you have the spring equinox. Okay, and over here, up here, and by the way, let me just say that the word solstice, so you have the fall and the spring equinox, and then you have the summer and the winter solstices. Now the word solstice in itself, family, is really, I did some research on the word solstice, and the word solstice, give me a second, the word solstice in itself is not a pagan word. Now the behaviors that we know that's associated with the word is certainly pagan. So the behaviors, the practices that we know of, that we have associated with the word solstice is certainly pagan. But the word solstice in itself is actually not pagan. The word solstice actually means reverse, right? To go back. That's really what it means. It's a Latin word that means to go back. Because, and the reason why um, the word solstice is used at the points that it's used is because that is the appearance of the it seems like that's what the sun does when it hits that point. It would seem that it's going in reverse. Okay, so that's where the word solstice comes from. So you have these 4 points. You have the fall equinox, you have the spring equinox, you have the summer solstice, and you have the winter solstice. And what we see here, these are the orbits of the planets and stars in the old solar system. That's what all that represent. Okay, now let's go down a little bit further. All right, we're going to get into more details as we continue, family. Okay, now above is a simple partial rendition of our solar system as drafted by my ban, Haykal, as mentioned earlier. It shows 1. The sun in its position at the center of our solar system. All right, so number 1, it shows the sun at the center of our solar system. Okay. 2, the earth in orbit, it shows the earth in orbit around the sun, which is the greater light. The sun, the greater light, it shows the earth in orbit around the greater light. So the earth is in orbit around the sun. All right. Three, the moon, or the lesser light, is in orbit around the earth. It shows the moon, the lesser light, in orbit around the earth. So far we want to pay close attention to that. So the earth is in orbit around the sun. The moon is in orbit around the earth. That is very important to pay attention to. The earth orbits the sun. The moon orbits the earth. That is very important. Okay? We're going to come back to that later. All right, let's go back down here to point number 4. The earth, it shows the earth on its axis. It shows the earth on its axis, right? It shows the earth on its axis. Number 5, the equilateral line. It shows the equilateral line. It shows the equilateral line, which is that line that we see running across here. It shows the equilateral line, line of the equator. Number 6, it shows other planets in their orbit around the sun. It shows other planets in their orbit around the sun. That's what, we just put a couple up there as an example. Shows other planets in their orbit around the sun. Number 7, the 4 seasons of the year: spring or Abib, summer, fall, and winter. It shows the 4 seasons of the year: spring or Abib, summer, fall, and winter. Okay. Number 8, to the top left is the name of the creator, Yahuwah, in the Paleo-Abari text. Okay, that's for people who come to the site and maybe clueless as to what that funny writing there says. Okay, so that's why it's the legend explains that. Okay, now we will now discuss in more detail how our solar system works, how Yahuwah's word validates its workings, and how by them we are able to tell when a day, a year, and the various seasons and appointed times come to be. And what I don't mention there is month or moon. But when I say appointed times or various seasons, that speaks of months or moons. Okay. All right. Let's go down a little bit more. Let us begin with a day. How does a day come to be? It should be understood that the scriptural Abari word yum, translated day, has several usages. The scriptures refer to a day as the combination of a light period and a dark period, or night and daytime combined, making one complete day. Okay, basically a 24-hour cycle. Yum also at times refers to only the period of daylight. So yum at times only refers to the period of daylight. Yum again also refers to an extended period of time. Example, one generation can be measured as in a day or in their day. Also a prophetic period of 1,000 years is referred to as a day, which is really speaking of a very long time. It should also be noted that 1,000 years is not literal, but is simply a way of saying a very long time. Okay, I did say that. The scriptures also speak of the workday, the period during which the sun is shining. We see that in Yahuwah, aka John chapter 9 and verse 4. The standard scriptural definition of a day, however, is a combination of the dark period and the light period. So how do these periods come about? So the standard scriptural definition of a day is the combination of the dark period and the light period. So how do these periods come about? Now in figure 2 takes a look at this. Now here you see the moon much closer. Okay, you see a diagram of the moon as it orbits the earth. You see it more closely. Remember earlier we pointed out that the earth orbits the sun and the moon orbits the earth. So how does a day come to be? Well, a day comes to be, we get a day according to scripture as the moon completes its cycle around the earth. Okay? And the sun and the earth around the sun. Um, no, I'm sorry. You get a day as the earth completes um, its cycle, its rotation, right? As it rotates, giving us facing the sun, basically gaining light from the sun is how we get a day, right? And then the moon uh, basically orbiting the earth. So between the earth's rotation on its axis as it travels around the sun and the rotation of the moon around the earth, that's basically how we get a day. Now I'm going to go into I'm going to read it where I'm not making a mess of it. I'm going to read it here in a second. We come into light and dark periods as the earth spins on its axis, thereby exposing the surfaces of the earth to the light of the sun and moon. All right, let me read that again. We come into light and dark periods as the earth spins on its axis, thereby exposing the surfaces of the earth to the light of the sun and moon. So we see that the two great lights plays a part in giving us day and night, or giving us a day. Okay, the two great lights plays an important role. As the earth spins on its axis, it travels on its orbit around the sun, spinning in its place while at the same time traveling around the sun. The completion of each rotation takes approximately 24 hours. The phenomenon that gives us day and night, or the period of one day. Okay, so that's what figure 3 below shows. So we go down to figure 3, and so it shows, figure 3 shows the earth spinning on its axis, and as it spins on its axis, the surface of the earth is exposed to the moon, and also it's exposed to the sun, and this cycle gives us day and night, or the completion of one day. Okay, now before I go any further, before I go on to the next part, I just want to make sure, are there any questions concerning what I've covered so far? Any questions concerning what I've covered so far, family? Okay, Akut Yana. Please go ahead, Akut. You can unmute your mic, or if you want me to unmute, I'll unmute it for you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Akut.
Okay, so then if this is the case, what you're saying, then uh, uh, we don't have to look at the way Genesis, the first chapter of Bereshit, shows us that Yahuwah separated the the night and the day. So we don't have to look at that anymore. We just put it all together.
Yeah, well, in reality, what he did, he basically created the separation of day and night even before he actually created the two great lights. And what happened, he was that light prior to the creation of the sun and moon. Once the sun, moon, and stars were created, they became the governors of day and night. So he put that workings in place even before the great lights were created, but he was that light that lit the day and brought darkness to the night, separated light from dark. He was that light. But then he put these two great lights into place that then took that function.
Okay, let's go back to the two great lights. I thought there was one great light and one lesser light.
Well, he called they're called overall. They're called two great lights. So let's go to verse 16, right? Verse 16 of Bereshit, chapter 1. So verse 16 says, and Elohim made two great lights. Give me a second. And Elohim made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night, and the stars. So there are two great lights. The reason why he called them great is because the moon is astronomical and the sun is astronomical. I mean, they are huge. So in fact, they are great lights. When you think about the moon that is 240,000 miles away from the earth, and yet it lights the earth very well, perfectly. If we don't have street lights taken away from it, it lights the earth very well. And then you have the sun that's 93 million miles away from the earth and also lights the earth perfectly. They have to be very great lights. So he says he made two great lights, but one is greater than the other. The sun is the greater light, the moon is the lesser light.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, Dakut. All right. Just want to be sure again, before we go any further, any other questions before we move forward? Yahusha, so what do you do if you're a vampire? Ah, all right. Okay, so we're gonna all right, I'll go on a little bit further. And family, I know that this is a tedious subject, especially when, we have been conditioned to think one way or some way. Um, it is a tedious subject, and I know it can be overwhelming. And so, please, if there are any questions, please stop me. If I say something, read something here you don't understand, please let me know. Stop me and let me know. If I can't see the screen because I'm reading, then come to the mic and let me know. Okay. Um, okay. All right. So let's go back to praise Yah, praise Yah, Kut. Let's go and pick up now from where we left off. So let me just go back up and read here, just for flow. All right, I've already read this, but I'm going to pick up from here again. We come into light and dark periods as the earth spins on its axis, thereby exposing the surface of the earth to the light of the sun and moon. As the earth spins on its axis, it travels on its orbit around the sun, spinning in its place while at the same time traveling around the sun. The completion of each rotation takes approximately 24 hours, the phenomenon that gives us day and night, or the period of one day. Now, I want to do something, excuse me, please. I want to do something more here. I want to give me a second. I want to let you see this in action. So I'm going to pull up a website. I'm going to pull up a website. Let me see if I can pull up a website here, just so you see in action what I actually stated there. Hearing it read might not be as clear as seeing it. So let me just pull up this website. Uh, Give me 1 second. Um, might be better if I just go to the link from the article. Give me a second. I want to pull up this website so you see what is actually being stated. Where are we at? I want to make sure. Bear with me for a second, family. All right, just want you to see um, what's actually being stated. I want you to see it. All right. So this is the Earth. This is Earth, right? And you notice that the earth is spinning. It's on its axis and it's spinning. The earth is spinning so fast we don't feel it. We all know that from science, right? But as the earth is spinning on its axis, which is what gives us day and night, between the earth spinning on its axis and the moon out here going around the earth like this, while the earth is doing that, the moon is steady doing this and traveling right along with it as it's traveling around the sun. So as the earth spins, it exposes itself to the sun. And as it spins, it also exposes itself to the moon that's going around it. And that's what gives us night and day. Okay? The two phases combined gives us one day. Now, later on, we're going to see how we come to the period of a moon or Yara'ak, a period of a month. We're going to see that. And then as it continues on this track, with the moon going around it, um, and it continues here, this is how we get a year. Okay, so between the moon and the earth and the sun, that's how we get days and years. But again, I just want you to see what was being stated in what I just read. I wanted you to see that in action. So hopefully this helps to make what stated there a little bit more clearly. Okay. Now let's go back to the article. All right. Now, I think this is where I'm supposed to be. Let me double check. Yeah, I think so. Yep. All right. So now let's look at. All right. Okay. An approximate 29.5 day cycle gives us one moon cycle. Okay. An approximate 29.5 day cycle gives us one moon cycle or 1 month. An approximate 29.5 day cycle gives us one moon cycle or 1 month. As the earth spins on its axis, completing its daily cycle about every 24 hours, the moon is also traveling in its orbit around the spinning earth, thereby exposing us to the phases of the moon that exist in one moon cycle. What do I mean by that? Exposing us to the phases of the moon that exist in one moon cycle. What I'm saying there is, if you go outside on every day of the moon, you will see a different phase. So after every 24-hour cycle, you see a new phase of the moon. And that's because the earth is turning and it's exposing us to the different phases of the moon as the moon orbits the earth. Okay. The following diagram of the various phases of the moon is from moonconnection.com. All right. Okay, so the following phases is from moonconnection.com, and so these are the phases of the moon. Now if you study the moon, you watch the moon, what you will notice about the phases of the moon is that the moon, the same phases that it goes through on the right hand side, it goes through the same phases on the left hand side. Okay, now because of our position in relation to the moon, the shape is now inverted. It's now flipped around because we are now looking at the moon from the other side. So it's now inverted. So the shape changes, but it's the same phases. The same phases you have with the moon growing is the same phases you have with the moon waning. Okay? So that's because of the moon rotating around the earth, and the earth spinning on its axis, that's how we get those different phases. And that's what gives us uh, between the moon and the sun gives us our days. Okay, now thus as Yahuwah tells us in his word, we see that days leads to moon or months. Thus as Yahuwah tells us in his word, we see that days leads to moon or months, and moons lead to seasons. We are told time and time again in the scriptures that it is the moon that determines the appointed time. The scriptures tells us time and time again that it is the moon that determines the appointed times. Although many try to deny this truth, it should be noted, however, that this is not in the sense of the lunar Shabbat doctrine, which does not take into account the workings of the greater light in the giving of times and seasons. What is emphasized here also is that according to the scriptures, a day begins at evening, not in the morning or at 6 a.m. as some continually insist. Barashit chapter 1, Nachamyahu 13, and Uyakara 23:32 also make this abundantly clear, along with many other scriptures, including those concerning the feast, are confirmations too numerous to list here. Let us now consider how to recognize a Shana, year. How do we know precisely when the new year begins? Which is very important for Yahuwah's people to understand. Is it by following what the Jews do? While that is what the majority of Yasharal does, it is blatant lawlessness. Although the scriptures make it clear that it is against Torah to keep the feast in captivity, many disobedient ones still continue to call themselves keeping the feast. To make matters worse, they do not even know how to calculate the times. So they simply go by the Jewish calendar, and it is most certainly great error. There are times when coincidentally the Jewish calendar dates line up with Yahuwah's calendar. However, it was not the case this year. For those following the Jewish calendar this year, they marked the new year a full moon cycle later than its actual occurrence. They then went on to say they had kept the feast, which would only be observed at the appointed time if we were able to do so in captivity. Do you see the error and danger? Let us go back to our diagram and to the scriptures in Barashit 1 to discuss how to know when the year begins. All right, so this is our original diagram. I'm going to go past that and go down here. Figure 6, I'm highlighting the equilateral line. This is very important. Now, this is where the equilateral line comes in. Very important. Okay. Listen, family. Nothing that Yahuwah puts in creation is insignificant. Nothing that Yahuwah puts in creation is insignificant. Everything plays a role. Everything has a purpose. You see? Now, yes, well, Aki, it's being recorded, and I will make sure that I post it to YouTube. And also the article is on the website, and there are links in that article also to other information. All right, so let's go back now. Looking at the diagrams above, and as was discussed earlier, we gather that the Earth is continually rotating on its axis. All of us is familiar with that, right, family? The Earth rotates on its axis, right? It spins so fast we can't even tell that it's spinning, right? It's rotating on its axis, right? All right. Yeah, we spinning. Yeah, we spinning aquí. All right. Now, thereby, okay. The earth is continually rotating on its axis, thereby giving us days and nights. And while it does this, it is traveling in its orbit around the sun. And while that is taking place, the moon is traveling in its orbit around the spinning earth. It is this simultaneous operation that eventually leads us to the end of one year and the beginning of another. Okay, so it is this, all this spinning, a whole lot of spinning taking place. It's all this spinning that eventually brings us to the end of one cycle and then to the beginning of another, or the end of one year and the beginning of another year. Okay, the great lights that Yahuwah has set in the heavens and also with the earth to give us time, seasons, days, and years. As the earth travels in our solar system, it passes through different sectors, just like it says in the book of Hanuk, where it talks about, in the book of Hanuk, it talks about, it uses the translation uses the word portals. But as the earth travels in our solar system, it passes through different sectors, bringing us into the different seasons. The signs in the heavens mark these seasons. For there to be a complete year, the earth has to travel through all four seasons and return to its starting point. All right, I'm going to read that again. The signs in the heavens marks these seasons. There are certain stars that you only see at certain seasons. The moon have a particular look at certain seasons. The sun does its work and is in a particular place at certain seasons. So like Yahuwah said, that these signs that he has placed in the heavens would be the signs that gives us days, years, seasons, appointed times, moons, right? Okay, so let's continue. The signs in the heavens mark these seasons. For there to be a complete year, the earth has to travel through all four seasons and return to its starting point. So for us to have a complete year, the earth has to end up, it has to go through all seasons and then go back to its starting point. What would be the starting point? What is the starting point according to scriptures? According to the book of Shamut. What is the starting point, family? According to the book of Shamut. Okay. Akut Yana, I see your flag. Akut, please go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and unmute your mic, Akut. Oh, where did Akut Yana go? Maybe it was accidentally that your flag was up. Okay, must be from last time. All right. So when we read there, oh, it was accidental. Okay. So remember earlier we talked about the word Abib. Now, if you read in spring, right? So let's look at that. According to the book of Shamut or Exodus, all right, let's look at that. According to Shamut or Exodus, give me a second. Let's look at that. Yes. All right, give me just a second, family. Let me go to Shamut, the book of Exodus. Okay. Shamut chapter 12. Exodus or Shamut chapter 12. Give me just a second. All right, Shamut chapter 12. And Yahuwah spoke to Masha and to Aharon in the land of Matrayim, saying, this moon or this month is the beginning of moons or beginning of month for you. It is the first moon or first month of the year for you. Okay? Speak to all the congregation of Yasharal, saying, one on the 10th day of this moon, each one of them is to take for himself a lamb, according to the house of his father, a lamb for a household. All right? Now, I'm not going to go all the way into this. It says this moon is the beginning. Um, Okay, so yeah, so this moon is the beginning of moons to you. Now, what moon? What moon? Let's go to chapter 13 and verse 4. What moon? He said, this moon shall be the beginning of moons, or the beginning of month, or beginning of years for you. So, what moon? Let's find out. What moon? Okay, chapter 13 and verse 4. Uh, Today you are going out in the moon Abib, in the moon Abib. Today you are going out in the moon Abib. In the moon Abib. In the moon Abib. That's, you see this phrase right here, family? This is important. In the moon Abib. So the moon that marks the beginning of years for you is the moon that occurs in Abib, or in the commencement of spring. All right, you see that, family? Let me say that again. So Yahuwah says, this moon shall be the beginning of moons for you. This month shall be the beginning of months for you. And then you go over, you ask, what moon, what month exactly? And he says, today you are going out in the moon Abib. No, the moon Abib. What is that really speaking about? We looked up the definition of Abib, and we saw that Abib actually means spring, right? So what is this saying? What it's telling us is that the moon, that the moon cycle that we are in when spring occurs, that moon is the beginning of the year. That month, that moon is the beginning of moons in a year. The moon that occurs to the Akut, the moon that occurs in Abib in the spring, the moon that you're in when spring occurs is the beginning of the year for you. Uh, we see that. We understand that Abib means spring, right? We understand that. Abib is a word that points to spring. We understand, right? Is that clear, family? Okay. Abib is a word that points to spring. We saw that earlier. And Yahuwah says the moon that occurs in Abib is the beginning of moons for you. How do we know when spring begins? How do we know when spring begins? Now we're about to go, certainly not January, right? Certainly not Janus, right? So how do we know when spring begins? The equinox. The equinox. The equinox. What is the equinox really? What is the equinox? How do we get an equinox? How do we get an equinox? Equal day, equal night. Now, when and how does that happen? I got a lot of questions, family. I got a lot of questions. Hope you don't mind. I got a lot of questions. The reason why I ask these questions prompts me to think, prompts you to think, right? Um, so, why and how, what brings that about? What brings that about? Equal day, equal night. What's that all about? What's that all about? Or what time of year is that? That's actually the point where the earth returns to its starting point, right? Is that right? Right, it's seasonal. And what brings the season is the rotations. So this is the actual point. This occurs, equinox occurs when the earth returns to its starting point, and when the earth returns to its starting point, it's in a very unique position. That is the only time that the earth splits the equilateral plane. That's the only time when the earth stands straight up and down. All the other times it is tilting, but that is the only time it stands straight up and down, and it gives you equal day, equal night, or it splits the equilateral plane. Now, that happens in the spring, it happens once, and in the fall, it happens. Okay? Now, in the spring, that is the marker. That is the demarker for the beginning of year. And according to Shamut, according to Exodus chapter 13 and verse 4, according to Shamut or Exodus chapter 13 and verse 4, let's look at that again. The moon, when you see the word month, when you see the word month here, think moon. The moon that occurs in the spring, the moon that we are in at Abib, the moon that we are in at the equinox marks the beginning of moons to you. Today you are going out in the moon Abib, right? The moon that occurs, the moon that we're in at the time of the equinox, the moon that we're in at the time of the spring. So another word for spring is equinox. All right, so is that clear so far? That clear so far, family? The moon that we're in at the equinox, at spring, at Abib. Okay, let me read that again. Let me go back. Let me go back to Shamut chapter 13 verse 4. Today you are going out in the moon Abib. First of all, remember where I started in chapter 12. Let's go back to chapter 12. Let's go back to chapter 12. In chapter 12, Yahuwah says, this moon is the beginning of moons for you. This month is the beginning of months for you. This is the beginning of the year for you. This is how you know when the year begins. That's what he is saying here in Shamut chapter 12, right? This is how you know when your year begins. This moon is the beginning of moons for you. It is the first moon of the year for you. Now we're asking the questions, well, what moon is that? Well, we don't get the answer until we run over here to chapter 13 and verse 4. We ask the question, what moon is he talking about? Okay, chapter 13 and verse 4 answers that question. Today you are going out in the moon Abib. So the moon that marks the beginning of years for you is the moon that you are in when Abib occurs, when spring occurs, when the equinox occurs. Okay, you follow, family? Did you see that? Okay, so in Barashit chapter 12, it says, and verse 2, it says, this moon shall be the beginning of years for you, the beginning of moons for you, the beginning of months for you. This moon shall be your beginning of moons. Okay? And this is how you will know when your year begins. That's what Yahuwah says in Shamut, Exodus chapter 12 and verse 2. So he didn't define exactly what moon that is in chapter 12. So we asked the question, well, what moon? Well, the answer comes in chapter 13 and verse 4. In chapter 13 and verse 4, he explains that it is the moon in Abib, or the moon, the cycle, the moon that you're in when Abib occurs, because Abib is an event. Abib is an event. Abib is an event. Spring is an event, right? So Abib is an event. Okay? Abib is an event. So the moon cycle that you're in when equinox occurs, the moon that you're in when spring occurs, is the beginning of moons for you. Okay. All right. Now, so we go on, right? Now I'm going to read this here again. As the Earth travels in our solar system, it passes through different sectors, bringing us into the different seasons. The signs in the heavens mark these seasons. For there to be a complete year, the Earth has to travel through all four seasons and return to its starting point. So, okay, so the year begins with Abib, and when does it end? It ends before the new Abib begins. It goes back to its starting point and starts all over again, right? This starting point is marked by the equilateral line on the right side of the map. The point is Abib or spring. It is the first of 2 points in our year where we have equal daylight and nighttime hours. We see our map below again. Please see our map below again. Okay, so that's what that highlights. Equal day, equal night. And the reason why that is because the earth is now in line with the equilateral line. And the earth stands straight up and down, and so you have equal day, equal night. Okay? All right. Now, um, it breaks the equilateral plane. Okay? Is what they call it scientifically. All right. You know what, family? We still have much to discuss. I don't want to give you too too much. I know this is a whole lot to take in, perhaps. So what I'm going to do, I want to stop here for today. And yeah, oh, Akut Shar told me a while ago, and I forgot. Went back and forgot. But I want to stop here for today. And Yahuwah willing, we'll come back to this either next Shabbat. We're hoping to assemble um, at the beginning of Thursday or Tuesday evening. Um, it is the Day of Atonement. No, I'm not going to cover this if I'm able to assemble. I don't know yet if I will be able to. I know I'll be at work. Um, it's their holiday on second day, Monday. So I'm off. I'm not working on Monday, but then Tuesday I'll be back at work. And I don't know. It might be a long day. I might not be able to get off in time. Wanted to ask the brothers if they wanted to if my wife opens up the room, my wife and son open the room, if you anybody would just if you want to carry on and be led, as Yahuwah leads you. But that was just something I wanted to mention, ask, and see. I know we all have work also. Don't know how that will play out. Um, don't know. Don't know how that will play out. No, for me, it's kind of uncertain. Day of Atonement is an appointed day. It is a day of fasting, um, uh, and also the scriptures tell us to afflict our being. There are sacrifices that goes along with the day, and we understand that we cannot are not really keeping these times, but uh, uh, just as we rest on Shabbat reflecting, if it's possible for us to fast on that day, not with the idea that we are truly doing this according to Yahuwah's command and that we are actually doing it, just reflecting and taking the opportunity to afflict our beings at this appointed time. And I believe that's something uh, good for us to do if it's possible. But that's the Day of Atonement, the 10th day. And so I'm hot. That's I don't know where we will be uh, by then. on. I'm not sure if I'll be in the room, but if anyone is able to step in, if you'd like to, and just let me know, and we'll go from there. Okay. The fast is a commanded fast along with the requirements that goes with it. Just like just like all the other feasts, they're commanded, but there are requirements that goes with them. And oftentimes, the only thing that is focused on is the fast or the eating, and the other instructions are left out. So uh, again, if it's from the perspective that if one is doing it from the perspective of I'm doing it, like I've fulfilled it, and the reality is we haven't. But like we assemble on Shabbat, we seek to rest on Shabbat, even in our captivity. Where possible, I believe we should seek to fast um, on the Day of Atonement. Is it from the perspective of saying that I have truly done this thing the way it should be done? It's not, because there are other requirements that goes with it if it's something that we say we're doing fully, and that's what I want to clarify more than anything else. So um, eh, if it's possible for you to do, I would say so. It's not. I can't speak for everyone. I know that different people are in different situations. For example, if somebody have to uh, work in an environment where, for example, they got a drink or something like that, that might be it might not be the same for me as it is for that person. So if we are a people in the land, that would be a day that nobody works. You see, it, it wouldn't be a question. The reality is that that's not the situation we're in, and not everybody uh, uh, is able or currently have that opportunity to be home. Uh, and some of us are facing some people out there that at times their behavior make you want to just knock them down. That's being real. uh, uh, imagine trying to fast in that environment. Um, it's not, in the reality for a lot of people is just not what it is for a few. So where possible, just like we assemble at Shabbat, we rest, we seek to rest and reflect. And again, I like to emphasize that nobody is keeping Shabbat. We reflect, again, from the perspective of Tahalim 137, you see. Yes, or if you work outside in the sun, absolutely. We don't want to have to come, the ambulance coming to pick somebody up from passing out, you see. So those are all things that affect us in our captivity, you see. You at least need water, absolutely. So that's those are all things that affect us, and it's things that we have to keep in mind. And I say this and I share this, trying to be sensitive to everybody, because and I realize that no matter how sensitive I try to be in explaining it, it's still going to be offensive to many, probably to the majority. Not saying in particular anyone in this room, but as a whole, I know that I've certainly offended many people already with this. Um, and so, but I try to be sensitive because, a lot of times, and the scriptures tells us this. Shahul also talks about it, about the one who thinks to be strong, but is actually the weaker. And there are a lot of people who, maybe in their own minds or in some kind of way, see themselves a certain way, but yet when you give them the truth, it offends them greatly because it goes contrary to what they perceive truth to be. So I try to be mindful of that and try to be sensitive in communication, but nonetheless, it's still managed to offend and push people away when I talk about that matter. But it's not that I'm not tempted to be sensitive. Yes, sunset to sunset, if possible. That would be the order of the fast. Lela Tub to you, Aki Adi Al. Lela Tub, Aki. Yes, certainly, certainly, Aki. Praise Yah. All right. Well, that would be begins Tuesday evening. Would begin Tuesday evening to Wednesday evening. Oh, you're welcome, Daki. All right. Well, family, we still have quite a bit more to cover in this. We think we have covered a lot, but hopefully, what we have covered to this point help to clarify some things, make things a little bit clearer. It's a subject that I've gone over before. And I'm hoping to make it a little bit more clearer now going over it again. And again, if at any time as we go through this, if there's a relative to you, Akut, if there's or maybe Akut Uriah was speaking to Aki Adial, but if there is any place you need me to go back, clarify something, please, by all means, ask me. Please ask me to do so. Praise Yah, praise Yah, praise Yah, praise Yah, praise Yah. All right, but please don't be afraid to stop me. Ask me to clarify something. Go over that again, please. I didn't see that. How did you get that? Whatever. You see, so, just whatever. Please go ahead, Akut Yaria. I'm going to go ahead and type the website in here.
Praise Yahuwah. Tuda Aki, I really appreciate it because I was stuck as we had a conversation before.
Mm-hmm.
And when you pointed out the scripture in Exodus 13:4, because I couldn't understand why you were starting the year at the new moon prior to the equinox.
Mm-hmm.
But I see that it's the moon that occurs, the new moon that occurs within the, even if the equinox hasn't occurred. I can see that now by looking at that scripture. So
Yeah.
I really appreciate that because I was really stuck on there for a minute.
Praise
And
Yah.
it really did help. Praise Yahuwah for that.
Praise Yah, praise Yah, praise Yah, Akut, praise Yahuwah. And I got to tell you that Akut Yariyah, she is a daughter of Yahuwah. And I could say I don't want to give her away. Maybe I could say she's a mom that takes seriously the study of Yahuwah's word. And I truly appreciate that. And she is very helpful and encouraging in me learning and growing and seeking Yahuwah. So I praise Yahuwah for her and for her diligence and her dedication. I think she has been at this quite some time. And I know that she truly loves and seek to serve Yahuwah in every way. Praise Yah, Akut, praise Yah. All right, I'm gonna put the link up here to the page, Aki. Where we at? I'm gonna put the link to that page in the room from the website so you can find it. Give me just a second. And you will see it's the what they call that, the PDF article on that page. Yeah, so we will continue to go over this, Yahuwah willing, but at this time we're going to end. I know I've held you long. It's 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Aki will, please go ahead. And while you're at it, Aki, as you wrap us up, could you pray us out? Please go ahead, Aki.
I got picked because my flag was up.
Yes.
Praise Yahweh. I just wanted to give Yahuwah esteem and praise and honor on his on Shabbat today, and also, excuse me, just to say that even when we go over information that we've gone over before, or that a person has gone over before, you can always learn something new by going over something again. And just want to praise Yahuwah for that lesson today, because I learned something going over it again. So just want to say Tudah Rabbah for that, Aki.
Oh, praise Yah. Aki, before you pray,
Yes.
praise Yah, to all esteem be unto Yahuwah. I was told there was a question on the board, so before you pray, I just want to see if I can find it real quick. Let's see. Just want to see if I can find it here. Day one, the spring. Oh, well, the actual equinox, we're actually able to know when the equinox is each year. It goes between, it falls anywhere from the 20 from the 20th to the 23rd is when it occurs in any given year. Only, of course, one of those dates in the year. So anywhere from pagan March, in March 20th to the 23rd is when it occurs. So in one year it might occur on the 20th, in another year, the 21st. This year, I think it occurred on the 20th, I believe, if I recall correctly. This year, I don't remember exactly, but I think it occurred on the 20th, I believe. And that's the actual day of the equinox. That's when you have equal day, equal night. That's the equinox. That's Abib. You see, that's when spring officially begins. Okay, that's the official beginning of spring, when the equinox occurs. March 20th, right? Yeah, yeah. So we can know, we can tell, we know exactly when it occurs. All right. Hopefully that clarified that. Or all right. Aki will, if you would please, if you would go ahead and close us out, Aki, greatly appreciate it.
Okay, not a problem, Aki. Okay, family, if we can, if able, let's go ahead and face east towards Yahuwah's set apart Haykal. Hallelujah. Ab Yahuwah, as this Shabbat draws to a close, we thank you, Ab Yahuwah, for keeping us, for guarding us, for bringing us to this last day of the week, for rest and relaxation and to study you.
Yes,
Father Yahuwah, we thank you for the lesson today. We thank you for your understanding. And Father, we thank you that you are an Elohim that is scientific, mathematical, poetic, loving. Father Yahuwah, we thank you for all your attributes and how you have given us your understanding through your word. And Father Yahuwah, I pray that as we all go through the next week, Father Yahuwah, that you protect us from the adversary, that you strengthen us each day, Father Yahuwah, to face and to do what you have given us to do, Father Yahuwah. I pray that you give us adequate rest, Father Yahuwah, each day, and that you strengthen us with your word, Ab Yahuwah, as we continue to study in our personal studies. And Father Yahuwah, I pray that as each of us are brought to mind during our prayer time, Father, that we lift up each other in prayer. Father, that your word be spoken. and your will be done. In Yahusha's name, Amen.
Aman. Hallelujah. Toda Aki. Praises to Yahuwah. I'm going to go ahead and sound shofar and say Lela Tub to you all, family. I want to tell you that I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for spending so much of your time with us here in fellowship, and always look forward to spending this time together. Praise Yah. We go ahead and sound shofar. Well, praises be unto Yahuwah. Hallelujah. Let me see. I'm gonna go ahead and end with a song here, family, as we say Leila Tub to everyone. I think I wanna end with a different song. Oh, Tada Aki, praise Yah. May Yahuwah barak you and keep you. May Yahuwah cause his face to shine upon you. Hallelujah. May Yahuwah show favor unto you. May he lift up his countenance upon you and give you his shalom. May the name of Yahuwah be upon you. Hallelujah. As a reminder, Yah truly is life.
Yeah.